Hi, I'm Christina and this is my reading wrap up for the month of June. So I'll do my stats first. In June I read 6 books. I have 1 1-star read, 2 2-star reads and 3 4-star reads. So it's quite a mixed board there. In terms of genre, I read 1 science fiction, 1 contemporary, 1 mystery, 1 young adult science fiction and 2 thrillers. So the first book I read in June was Vox by Christina Dalcher. This was a really disappointing book. I only gave it 1 star. Now I've actually done a whole rant review on this book, so I will link that down below if you're interested. Otherwise, I'll just give a brief summary. It's a science fiction book set in America, and it depicts a time where women have very few rights. Every woman and every girl has been fitted with a counter that allows her to only say 100 words a day. And if you say more than 100 words, you will be electrocuted by this counter. I thought it sounded like a wonderful concept, but it just fell flat. I thought the plot was very predictable. I felt that the characters were very one-dimensional. I didn't connect to any of the characters or particularly care about what happened to them. I thought there was a definite lack of tension in the writing, and it just failed to deliver any kind of emotional impact. And in theory, I think the concept, the premise was wonderful and it had the potential to be really great, but in execution, it just didn't hit the mark, and I found it very disappointing. Now, the second book I read in June was 9 Perfect Strangers by Liane Moriarty. Again, another disappointing book. So I gave this 2 stars. Normally, I love Liane Moriarty's writing. So I read Big Little Lies and I absolutely loved it. That's a definite 5-star read for me. And I also read The Husband's Secret and I enjoyed that too. I think that was a 3-star read for me. But this one, it's just not as good. This is contemporary fiction. It follows 9 people who go to a health resort for 10 days. Now, I thought the first half of this book was great. I genuinely couldn't put it down. There's an absolutely wonderful mix of characters. It's told from 12 different perspectives. So you have the 9 guests and then you have the 3 main members of staff. And I just really enjoyed the unfolding of all the different characters, especially the guests. And I thought they had really interesting and detailed backstories, and I really enjoyed that part. And then it all just started to fall a bit flat about halfway through. So I predicted the twist. I won't say what it is because I don't want to give any spoilers, but I predicted the twist very early on. So for me, it became an okay book. And I don't think there's much more to say about it. It's okay. Yeah. The third book I read in June was The Lost Man by Jane Harper. I absolutely loved this book. I gave it 4 stars. So it's a mystery set in Australia. And there are 2 brothers who meet at the boundary of their cattle properties to watch over their dead brother until the police arrive. Now, the police suspect suicide, but our main character isn't convinced. Now, I don't want to say anything more than that because I think it's really good to go in blind with a mystery. So I absolutely loved Jane Harper's writing style. It's so wonderfully atmospheric. The way she writes these detailed descriptions about this remote part of the Australian outback, it's like she's actually transporting you there. It's definitely a character-driven story. The way she focuses on this one family and really explores the complicated family dynamic and the different relationships between the different characters is great. Each of the characters are fully developed and complex and nuanced, and she just makes it so easy for you to really connect with the characters and to really genuinely care about what happens to them. Overall, it is a beautiful, slow-paced mystery, and I think it's an absolutely wonderful book, and I would definitely recommend it. And I've also read The Dry by her, and again, it was a wonderful book, and I would definitely recommend that one too. The fourth book I read in June was The Perfect Child by Lucinda Berry. I absolutely love this book too. I gave it 4 stars. So this is a psychological thriller, and it is intense, and it's dark, and it's disturbing, and it is truly captivating. A husband and wife decide to foster an abandoned child who has been brought to the hospital where they both work by the police. Now, she's a very disturbed child, and I won't say anything more than that because I don't want to spoil anything for you at all. It just twists and turns, and it is very dark. In fact, there's times when I think it's actually slipping into the horror genre. So if you're looking for a dark, disturbing, keep you up at night thriller, this is the one for you. It's told through 3 perspectives: the mother and father who foster the abandoned child, and their social worker. Now, the characters in this are very well developed, and their pain and their anxieties and their grief, it all feels very real and very immediate. Overall, Lucinda Berry paints a very vivid insight into this disturbed family dynamic, and I would absolutely recommend you pick it up. The 5th book I read in June was The Chain by Adrian McKinty. Now, I thought this was an okay book. I gave it 2 stars. So a mother receives a phone call to say that her daughter has been kidnapped, and the only way she can save her daughter is to pay the ransom and then kidnap another child, because she is now part of the chain. The book is split into 2 parts, and the first part deals with the initial kidnapping, and the second part deals with the chain. Now, I actually enjoyed the first part much more than the second part. The first part was a definite solid 3-star read for me. The events in the second part just felt very unrealistic, and for me, the plot started to move into the territory of plain silliness, and I just didn't like the direction that it went. In theory, I like the premise of this book, and it actually should be right up my street, but with the second half, it just kind of fell flat for me and just kind of pulled the book down a little bit. I think that overall it's kind of forgettable. So the 6th and final book I read in June was Scythe by Neal Shusterman. I absolutely love this book. I gave it 4 stars. It is a young adult science fiction, and it imagines a time where humanity has conquered death, and there is no natural way for people to die. Every single person is immortal. So the only way to be killed is to be killed by a scythe. So obviously in this world, scythes are hugely important to control overpopulation. The premise of this feels very original, which actually surprised me because I think it is difficult for young adults to feel original, but the originality actually really pleasantly surprised me. I also really enjoyed the characters, and I thought the world building this was excellent. It really was really good. I was, again, really pleasantly surprised by how great the world building was. Now, I think this book genuinely deserves all the hype that it gets on BookTube, and I was thinking, is it overhyped? Am I going to be disappointed? But no, I really enjoyed it. I'm very much looking forward to reading the second book in this trilogy. So that's all the books that I read in the month of June. I'd say I absolutely loved these 3 books and I would definitely recommend them. And on the other hand, these 3, I'd say probably give them a miss. So is there any books here that you've read? If so, let me know what you thought of them down in the comments. I'd be really interested.